Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners. Just want to give you a little information about the mission of the Newsa-Cast. Our mission stems from the mission of the Red Smith Banquet, and that mission was to support youth sports in the Fox Valley. Over the 57 years of its existence, we've been honored to give out over $1 million to various youth sports organizations throughout the Fox Valley. The Newsa-Cast is looking to continue that mission and support youth sports as well. You can help us do that by donating to the Newsa-Cast and the Red Smith Sports Banquet.
Today on the Newsa-Cast, we have a special one. Chuter's Youth Boxing Club in Little Chute, and the person that started it all, Nick Maher. It's an engaging interview you won't want to miss. Tosh and I take an old look at new. Our Red Smith Banquet Throwback brings us back to 2009 and the start of the Brewers' success. Tosh and I determined, and their GM at the time was Doug Melvin, and that year we awarded him an award at the Red Smith Banquet, but he came for many years for sure. We end the show like we always do with It's Forgotten, I'm Never Forgetting. So what do you say, folks? Let's get this show on the road.
And I go over this with all my boxers when I can tell he or she is going to be a competitor, what to expect emotionally. Teaching them how to control it is the hardest. Teaching somebody how to lose is another hard part of the game. Some kids lose a fight and they never come back to the gym. Some kids lose a fight and they send me a video the next morning at 7 a.m. running bleachers. That boy is going to be a champion.
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, it is time for another episode of everybody's favorite podcast, and that is the Newsa-Cast. We're coming back at it, and we are venturing out into another new arena, so to speak, and we're looking at the boxing rink this week, Joe.
Yeah, Tosh, an incredible story. It maybe is my most favorite that we've had on the Newsa-Cast as far as just an actual story. You guys are going to be blown away. I can't even really describe how good of an interview this is, and what this guy Nick Maher from Chuter's Boxing in Little Chute is doing. Literally has a boxing gym teaching kids in the neighborhood that wander up to him how to become boxers, and he does it all for free.
That's incredible. I used to watch a lot of boxing with my grandfather. He was a boxer during World War II, had like 62 fights during the war, and just would go to his house and we'd watch boxing when I was younger and stuff while he was still alive. And it holds a special part. You know, I think of him when I see boxing. So this is a really cool episode. I wish I could have been part of it, but I look forward to hearing it for sure. You know, it's this is one of those special ones, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. And the only certainty, Tosh, is you work too much. I know that with your new job, but yeah, it is one of the great ones for sure. And Nick and I actually do talk about some of the great boxing. Remember the old like ABC Wide World of Sports on a Sunday afternoon? You'd see like Sugar Ray Leonard,
absolutely,
box, or Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Heck, I swear to God, even Ali boxed in the 70s on that show. I mean, it was George Foreman, all those old. Well, you were young in those days, but
right.
Yeah, boxing was obviously way more prevalent, and you know, we've had MMA guys on here. You know, we like that sport as well, but boxing is as old school. It's literally the oldest, you know, hand-to-hand combat sport ever. It's old school as old school can get, and that's what this episode is. That's what Nick's bringing here. It's just put those gloves on and go. But at cardio too. We talk a lot of cardio because, man, that's the core of boxing.
It is incredible how much cardio you see those guys when they're running, and the boxers. You talk back to those Saturdays. I remember my father putting in a tape on the VHS so he could tape fights for my grandfather because he didn't have the channels or what it was, and he'd bring tapes over and he'd watch them on the VCR, and it's cool. I still, during the summer, the Olympic boxing is incredible to watch.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty cool. And, it gives kids another avenue. It could be something that's really exciting for them. It gives them an avenue to maybe just to do something instead of just being inside or being on a video game or a tablet or a phone or things like that. Something active. And, the more you can get kids involved in things, the better off they're going to be in life. And I think boxing is one of those life lessons that kids can use. Certain kids can.
Yeah, and he tells stories of those exact kids where it actually becomes a lifestyle. It becomes them, and that's incredible to see that transformation. Exactly. Yeah, he called. I think he called the running Tosh road time. You got to get your road time in.
Exactly. I remember some of those Saturdays, like Thomas the Hitman Hearns and Sugar Ray, and those are some incredible Saturdays to sit and watch Wild World of Sports. So that's awesome.
How about in our 20s in the 90s? Right. Tosh and I are a little bit older than these kids for sure, but I mean Tyson. We saw Tyson grow up as coming onto the scene as a kid, and that was much watched TV. We'd get a bunch of guys together and watch him. Well, sometimes it might have lasted 20 seconds.
20 seconds, exactly.
Pummel the guy, and you paid that money. But I mean, it was just edge of your seat, standing up, watching that. I mean, he was just all time one of the greatest. Just in his prime, incredible.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it's a great interview, and it's a great story, great place in Little Chute. You're gonna find out a lot of information about not only about Nick, but also about the Chuter's boxing itself and where it is and what you can do and how it is no cost. So it's pretty incredible.
Well, it's exactly what we set out to do, right, Tosh? With the Newsa-Cast, we hope we have some new listeners. I think a lot of boxing fans. We were born out of the Red Smith Banquet, which was a long-time fundraiser, but what we wanted to do was just highlight stories like Nick, and we have a lot of stories like that. We talked to a lot of coaches, a lot of just interesting people. We've been at this now. We've got like 80 some episodes, I think, out there. So Newsa-Cast on YouTube, Spotify, all of that stuff. Go back and listen to. You'll find some great people. Yeah. Absolutely. Every interview is really good in my opinion. But check out our social media, Newsa-Cast. We're on Instagram, X, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. We're everywhere, and I know Shooters is as well. They're huge on Facebook. So let's help each other out. Hit like and subscribe. View it. Those like and subscribes, man, they really, really, really help. It's everybody begs for them, but we're begging for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Help each other out. Hit those like and subscribes. If you're new to this podcast, I mean, we have, like we said, we've everybody you can imagine. We have community members, business people. We have lots of sports people as well. So you're going to find something you like for sure. But speaking of things we like, last week we had the coaches of lacrosse on in this Fox Cities area. And, it was really the big first week of lacrosse last week. And, I have a little bit of a bias towards Appleton United since my son plays on that team. They really, they played really well this week. 3 big wins. I mean, double-digit scores every game. Went down to Waukesha on Friday and beat Waukesha 13-2. So they're, looking good so far. I know they have another 3 games this week. We had a huge game right away to start the season, and that was Nina and Kimberly. Yeah. And that was a barn burner, double overtime, and Kimberly comes out on top, which is a great win for that program.
Yeah, no doubt. Right out of the chute, big win for Kimberly. Roger's fired up. I got a text from him that night saying OT win. That was huge. It was a great goal. Drove the box and got it in there. It was sweet. I mean, lacrosse is here. Yeah, Tosh, I'm a fan of Appleton, obviously too. One of my boys played there as well, and Coach Danny's doing a heck of a job. If you go back and listen to him, I thought it was interesting. He'd mentioned, it's year 3 for him, and he's growing too, learning to be a coach. It's not easy to put yourself out there. Danny's young, and just to learn to be a coach and the steps that are taken. And year 3, I think he's starting to figure some things out, and the boys are responding and playing well.
Yeah, absolutely. This will be a good week. I think they have Oneida on Monday at Appleton East. They go to Notre Dame on Wednesday, and then McGuanago comes up for a big non-conference game. McGuanago is always a great program. They're tough. It's going to be a great game. Speaking of great games, so I do want to plug this for both Kimberly and Appleton United. On April 26th, the Saturday, Oconomowoc and Madison Edgewood are coming to Appleton East, and Kimberly and Appleton East are going to host both of those teams. So there's going to be lots of lacrosse, 4 games, and it's also going to be the Lacrosse Fights Cancer game. So this is a huge, huge game. We're really going to try. We've had a lot of families who have been touched by cancer, including Roger, Kimberly's coach.
Right.
So this is going to be a big game, big day, I should say. And, hopefully Kimberly and Appleton United can hand it to the 2 Southern teams. But this is going to be a whole day of lacrosse at Appleton East. JV games will be played on the grass soccer field, and the varsity games will be played on the turf. So it should be a blast. It should be a really good time.
Looking forward to that. I'm just looking at the latest poll, Tosh, Wisconsin state lacrosse poll. Yeah. Appleton is 5.
Oh, all right.
Kimberly's 8.
All right. That? Nice.
Yeah. Kettle Moraine number 1. So
that's Kettle Moraine team is tough. They're a good team.
Yeah, it's all the same in Middleton, Waunakee, McGuanago. They're all, the only one really missing is Arrowhead, but Verona's on there a little bit later. But even Hudson is going to be good as well.
Oh, yeah. They just I just saw White Bear Lake, Minnesota. They just tied them 7-7.
Oh, and, did they? Okay.
Yeah, that's a good game right there. Minnesota lacrosse is tough. So
yeah. It's weird. I never spent a lot of time when Owen, they very rarely ever played Minnesota teams. It was just kind of odd.
Yeah. So lots of lacrosse. Go check it out. You can see the lights on. Just as like we said, if you see the lights on the football field, there's either going to be girls soccer going on, there's going to be girls lacrosse or boys lacrosse. And any of them, you're going to see some fantastic athletes. So go check it out. And not to mention the softball and baseball around here is amazing as well. So go check out those high school fields when you drive past, because you're going to see some good action.
High school sports at their finest. Well, Tosh, I don't know. I didn't have had a pretty non-eventful week, I would say. So I don't have much to report to you.
Yeah, I don't have a ton. Just a lot of lacrosse this past week, and it's going to be a lot of lacrosse and baseball that I'm working this coming week as well. So I'll keep people updated on what's happening in the teams I see and who's looking good.
No, that sounds good, Tosh. Well, I suppose we should probably get this old show on the road and learn a little bit about boxing. But first of all, we're going to take an old look at new. It's that time again, once again, for an old look at new. Brought to you by Raleigh Winter and Associates, celebrating 55 years. Did you know that in 1962, an Appleton junior high school teacher with a strong work ethic started a residential realty company? His name, Raleigh Winter. 3 generations later, the Winters still hold true to a strong work ethic and an excellent reputation in the community. Today, Raleigh Winter and Associates remain actively involved in providing retail, office, and industrial users an affordable, well-designed working environment through the creation and/or acquisition of quality real estate in the Fox cities and even beyond new. So what do you say? Let's take an old look at new.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, it is time for our look at history that we like to call an old look at new. Sometimes we pull events from the past, and sometimes it's just things that are happening or new places that we don't know about. So, Joe, what do you have for an old look at new this week?
Well, Tosh, this was certainly a place we didn't know about, or at least I didn't know about until about a week and a half ago. We we stumbled into an interview from a fella by the name of Nick Maher from Little Chute, and he owns an auto mechanic shop on East Main Street in Little Chute. And you're saying, well, why the heck would you? You know, this is not an old look at new. It's just a guy that changes oil. Well, it's what's behind that building that's even more amazing. It's a little tiny garage. And inside that garage, there's a boxing ring. There's heavy bags. There's some mirrors, some lights, a whole bunch of motivational posters and posters of boxers and things like that. And what it is, it's a youth boxing club called Chuter's Youth Amateur Boxing Club. And kids from the neighborhood walk over there, and Nick teaches them how to be boxers. And he just recently bought a bigger ring and a rink, and it sits outside. And it's a really incredible place that's tucked behind an auto mechanic shop. And I can't think of a better old looking new than Chuter's Youth Amateur Boxing Garage is really what it is, in East Main Street in Little Chute. So that, by God, Tosh, is my old look at new.
All right. That's pretty cool.
What's your old look at new this week?
We're looking at April 14th, 1953. And on that date, we have a certain Major League Baseball team that makes their debut, and that's the Milwaukee Braves. And they make their debut at the newly constructed in 1953 County Stadium, which is a place that I used to love to go to.
Absolutely.
And they beat the St. Louis Cardinals 3-2 in 10 innings in that first game.
Do you think it smelled like Old County Stadium with a secret sauce?
I don't think so at that point, because when I went, County Stadium used to smell like urine and secret sauce. So
it's a distinct smell, Tosh.
It was a distinct smell, but I'm sure it smelled a little better at that point. But yeah, I didn't even realize how old, when we used to go to games at County Stadium, how old County Stadium really truly was.
When you see pictures back there, the grandstand wasn't, County Stadium we went to, the upper deck reached to the foul lines, and it maybe in those days reached to the end of the dugout. I think it wasn't very big.
No, that's pretty cool, though. I mean, there's lots of really good books about those early Braves teams and baseball in Milwaukee. If you're interested in that, go check those out. Fantastic. I mean, time for Milwaukee was having that Milwaukee Braves team.
Yeah, definitely. I remember my dad telling stories of going to the World Series back then, back to back with. I mean, those are legendary teams: Warren Spahn, Hank Aaron. I mean.
Absolutely.
Hillenbrew, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't around there. I'm trying to pull names, but yeah, they're great teams for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was Old Look at New, which is sponsored by.
Yeah, our friends at Raleigh Winter and Associates. We thank them for helping us out. And you're right, Tosh. Old Look at New. All right, guys, here is our interview with Chuter's Youth Boxing Club, Nick Maher from Little Chute. Tosh wasn't able to make this interview, but it was a great interview. Nonetheless, enjoy. I saw you on the news a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago highlighting the gym, but I think you have a youth boxing gym right here in Little Chute. It's incredible what you do.
Right. So this is U.S. Olympic style boxing. Obviously there's an Olympics every 4 years. Boxing is the oldest sport in the Olympics. They actually built the Olympics around boxing. And the U.S. prides itself up until lately on having a very good Olympic team. Guys like Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather, the late George Foreman, the late Muhammad Ali. Those are all guys that were products of USA Boxing. They did the same thing these boys and girls are doing right now. They competed at the same tournaments. A lot of them are in the same towns they've always been. So this is the breeding process of an Olympian. We train 5 nights a week. We travel every weekend to all these little shows all over the Midwest, in hopes that one day you're standing in Madison Square Garden or you're standing in another country on the Olympic stage. This is the journey. It's the long road to the heavyweight championship of the world or, the middleweight championship of the world.
Man, it's what a story. So many different directions to go to, and I want to hit it all, but I feel like we need to start with your story in the very beginning, because I mean, you had these exact dreams. This is what you were doing, chasing an Olympic dream. So, where were you born and raised? How did you come to boxing? Why is boxing running through your blood?
I was born to a big Catholic Italian family down in Chicago. My mom and dad had 13 kids, and they decided to move us up into the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, and kind of retire to Wisconsin Rapids. That was in 1999. And my older brothers and my dad had all boxed for the historic Windy City Boxing Club out of downtown Chicago.
I've heard of that.
And my uncle, my grandfather, my great grandfather were all big boxers in the military. Some of them were sparring partners with the late Ken Norton. My boxing was my family was rooted in boxing. My dad used to come in the house, and if we weren't watching Friday night fights on a Friday, he'd ask what was wrong with us.
Sure.
We grew up in a big boxing family. Well, anyways, we moved to the middle of nowhere. We kind of thought that the boxing dreams were over. My brothers were depressed. They were 10 and 12 at the time. I was just 7 years old. And one day, me and my dad go into a quick trip, and we're standing in line, and this big grizzly guy kind of cuts through line, and he's got a Wisconsin Rapids Boxing Club sweatshirt.
Oh,
and
wow.
My dad immediately, I'll never forget holding his hand. He goes, "Oh, I got to talk to that guy." So he put his stuff down, and he caught the guy's attention. Well, and the guy was the legendary, boxing coach Ken Hilgers. And Ken said, "Yeah, I train boxers 3 nights a week in an abandoned schoolhouse for free in town here. I've been doing it for about, at the time, 35 years. He says, bring your boys down." Anyways, my dad ran home, picked up my brothers, and said, "You're never going to believe this." And here we go. An hour later, we're walking into a boxing gym. Little did we know how big of a role that man and that old schoolhouse would play in all of our lives. My 2 older brothers were legendary amateur boxers. My brother Jimmy was an alternate for the Olympics in 2008. He signed a pro contract under Golden Boy Promotions, Oscar De La Hoya's team. And he went professional for 4 years, and he racked up 8 wins, no losses. My brother Joe went on to have a good pro career. And then obviously I started at 7 years old, and I wasn't allowed to compete yet. You had to be 8 years old to compete. So the old coach says, "I tell you what, you can come in with your brothers as long as you don't roughhouse or, cause a commotion." Well, I became his little buddy, and everywhere we went, I was hooked to Ken's hip,
Yeah.
And we would travel. I fought 175 times between 8 and 20 years old.
Wow.
I had 10 state titles, 8 regional titles, 4 national titles. I was on the junior Olympic team several years in a row. And by the time I was 20, I got the hint that the Olympics wasn't in my cards, so I fell out of the sport. And, years later, Kenny called me on a whim and asked me to stop at the gym and see him. I was probably 22, 23 years old. And I stopped down at the gym, and I walked in, and it was just Kenny still doing the same thing 20 years later.
Yeah.
And he tricked me into coaching. And I helped him coach for 5 years. It was the greatest 5 years, as his assistant. And we went from 3 fighters, and by the time I left, we had 33. And I left because of COVID. I moved to the Fox Valley, opened a business, and I was traveling back and forth an hour and a half, 3 nights a week. And it just finally dawned on me, I should just open my own gym.
Yeah.
And I kind of got my old coach's blessing, which meant a lot to me. He's kind of like a second dad. And man, I didn't know any kids when I opened the gym. I thought I was nuts. I was building all this equipment. And all of a sudden, 2 little boys walked up and asked me to teach them. And then from there, we grew from 2 kids in 22 months. We're at 85 kids total in the program.
I mean, and it's pretty much just word of mouth, right? I mean, those 2 kids literally just walked up to you, saw what you were doing?
Right. They were walking around the neighborhood here, and they saw me in there every night building this boxing ring and welding this bag tree. I didn't have a lot of money, just opened a business. So I would take $100 every Wednesday and go on Marketplace and pretty much guilt people into giving me their old boxing equipment. And that's how I built the gym, man. Pretty humble. Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. I've not been there in person. I saw it on the news. I mean, it's literally, a garage, more or less. But it's incredible. What does it take to build a boxing ring? I mean, that's not something you do every day. That's a big undertaking.
Believe it or not, I bought a midget ring because that's all I could afford, and I cut it into pieces, and I extended the ropes with regular rope for a while. And then we ran with it at about 10 feet by 10 feet. A competition ring is 20 by 20.
Okay.
And my first 5 competitors used that to train for their first matches. And after they had a few matches, I was like itching my head. I go, why does all my kids fight like we're in a phone booth?
Yeah.
They're just brawlers. Everybody's telling me, man, your kids are bangers. And I'm thinking that's not what I want. I don't want kids to bang. I want kids to box.
Sure.
So I woke up one night and I nodded about 1 a.m. and I drove to the gym and I disassembled the ring. And I stretched it to 17 by 17. And that was how we got our second ring. And we ran with that for about a year. And then a gym in Chicago got a hold of me. And he said, listen, kid, I've seen what you're doing. I've seen you at the shows. I've hit a stroke of good luck with the fitness industry. And I want to donate my old ring to you. All you got to do is come down and pick it up. So I drove down to Cicero and I picked up his old boxing ring. And that's the ring we have today.
Ah, incredible. I got to ask, growing up with your 3 brothers, and especially before you discovered boxing in Wisconsin Rapids, would you guys just pound on each other? Or what was growing up like with 3 brothers and all fans of boxing?
I have 5 brothers. I'm the 6th brother, and we all boxed. Even my younger brothers were boxers. My dad, all the boys boxed, but he always had a ring in the garage. And we got a lot of our training from our father. He was a big boxer. He had 41 pro fights out of Chicago. He really knew what he was talking about, but he was a business owner. He owned big car dealerships. So he was busy a lot, but he always trained us. Every Sunday, we would go serve at Catholic Mass. We'd get home, we'd eat pancakes, and we'd go out in the garage, and he'd coach us for about 5 hours. And, we would spar with each other, and he really developed us kind of in the garage there.
When you're training to be a boxer, I mean, I know you're hitting and power, but I mean, I'm assuming core and things like that. What does a typical, what are you doing for 5 hours? Are you doing the old school Rocky push-ups, things like that? You're working the whole body?
So the cool thing about boxing is it's never changed. Baseball, you see it now. They got new bats, and they got, football's got they regulate the air in the ball, and so many things can change in sports. And they have, you hear the old saying, Joe Montana wouldn't make it a day in Tom Brady's era, and Tom Brady wouldn't make it a day. But in boxing, nothing's changed, man. I mean, this is
just hit the guy.
Right. But the training hasn't changed. Jump rope was invented for boxers. It's a boxer's. Yeah. We do a lot of jump rope, but we're really big in my gym on calisthenics. We do 45 minutes of time calisthenics a night. If a kid quits boxing before he grows into a full boxer, it's usually because he can't take the calisthenics.
Yeah.
We train as a team every night, 3 hours, and the first 45 minutes is straight calisthenics. Burpees, push-ups, sit-ups, gut busters, planks, toe touches, everything you can think of. To really train that core, because that is essentially where punching power comes from. It's like thunder or lightning. It comes from the ground. So from your ankles, to your back and shoulders. That's where that power is generated. And so, we do a lot of calisthenics, about half the practice, along with a lot of road work. It's a lonely sport. If you're not getting up in the morning all by yourself, putting your headphones in and getting out there on the road and jogging 3 to 5 miles a day, even at 9 and 10 years old, when you'll never get to the pinnacle of amateur boxing. Locally, you'll have some success with minimal training. But as far as I had a kid win a national tournament this year. I had 2. They're the best in the country. That was a 5-day tournament. They fought all 5 days in a row without losing against the regional champions from all over the country, including Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, incredible.
And to compete at that level, everything from what you put in your body to your home regiment, push-ups before bed, dips, pull-ups. We only have a few hours with you a night. And although it seems like a lot, it seems pretty demanding to be here 5 nights a week. There's kids that are training much harder than you.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, even if the boxing doesn't work, it's an incredible lifestyle for them. Just, I mean, that stuff is so important. Your core being, being a little bit older myself, I like to take physical fitness pretty serious, and it's all about the core, man. It saves you just from slipping on ice or anything. It's so huge.
Right. And, body punches are probably the number one. I coach heavy body punches. Kids are natural headhunters. When you get a little boy and you teach him how to really blast somebody or strike with a real good punch, naturally, the first thing he wants to do is go for the nose, get him a bloody nose. He wants to go for the head. We call those headhunters, and that's the majority of your kids. But I really work on being patient, controlling your emotions, staying calm but urgent. And seeing what's in front of you. I like to work the body. A lot of my kids have had a lot of success with stopping their opponents with solar plexus shots or kidney shots. So having a strong core not only gives you power, but it makes you prepared for those moments when you do catch a good shot in the midsection, and it happens.
Oh, no doubt. You mentioned it just a second ago, that the mental part. I mean, that's about as equally as important as the physical part, isn't it?
It's 90% of the sport. It's my toughest problem in the club. And, it's always been a tough problem. Me and my brothers, when I first started coaching, this was such a new problem to me when I would meet kids and I was coaching them, because in my household, we loved to do this. When our coach would call and say, hey, does Nikki, Jimmy, and Joey want to box on Saturday? My dad didn't even tell us. He just said, sure.
Yeah.
And our coach would pick us up and away we went. We were in Sioux Falls or Minneapolis or Milwaukee. We would box anybody and everybody that was willing to get in the ring and go 3 rounds with us. But as I became a coach, I realized that that's not the case with all the kids. The hardest thing I've learned in my almost 2 years of being a head coach is how to train their emotions and their courage, and to teach them that, everybody has fear. Without fear, me and you would be dead, because we wouldn't look both ways when we cross the road.
Right.
Why do you look both ways? You don't want to get run over. Fear is natural. And if we didn't have it, humanity wouldn't have lived this long if we didn't jump in fire when we saw it. But the idea is to learn how to control that. Fear is like fire. And if you learn how to control it, it can do a lot of good. It can heat your home. It can power your trains and it can do a lot of good. But if you don't learn how to control it, that fire will be like California. It'll burn everything in its path.
Yeah.
Ruin your life. So you got to teach a kid how to harness those emotions and that anxiety, and how to project it onto his opponent. I always say the same thing: the hero and the coward, they feel the same thing. They go through the same emotions. The only difference is that hero finds a way to be at his best, his absolute best, when he feels that pressure. To where the coward, he can't face it. He just can't come to overcome that fear. And he does something a coward would do. He runs and hides. And I go over this with all my boxers pretty early on, when I can tell he or she is going to be a competitor, what to expect emotionally. And I let them know, hey, that other boy woke up this morning in the same shoes you did.
Yeah.
Emotions and teaching them how to control it is the hardest. Teaching them how to control it after a loss, teaching somebody how to lose is another hard part of the game. Some kids lose a fight and they never come back to the gym. Some kids lose a fight and they send me a video the next morning at 7 a.m. running bleachers.
Sure.
That boy is going to be a champion.
Do you think you're born with that? Because I've seen that too in youth sports. I mean, do you think a kid is just born with that, or is that something that they can learn? I mean, I think some kids can probably work into that. As
funny as it sounds, you're born with it a little bit. But it all depends on your character. You need to have a strong character. Where does a strong character come from? A strong home. A lot of the boys I have in the gym that are my most talented boxers come from the toughest situations. And although you would think, okay, here's a boy that's had a lot of heartache in his life, he's lived a tough life, he should be really extremely tough. When the pressure is on, um, sometimes they have the weakest character. They have the weakest, courage. And a lot of that I chalk up to their home life. They just don't have mom or dad in their life giving them that strong character. I got boys in the gym that are the nicest little kids. They're homeschooled. They got a great mom and dad. You would never guess this little blonde hair, blue eyed boy would be as ferocious as he is when the bell rings. But the same thing, the kid with no parents that lives in a foster home, the same thing he's getting out of boxing is the same thing that the boy that comes from a really good home but might have a speech impediment or might not feel like he fits in. He might be an outcast, even in his own family. They're getting the same thing out of this sport, although they come from polar opposite upbringings.
Right.
They're getting acceptance, and they're getting the fact that, when you cross those ropes, everybody's equal. You're no better than me, whether you woke up on silk sheets or in a trailer park. When that bell rings, whether you speak better than I do, whether you get better grades than me, whether you have a nicer vehicle, mom, dad, home, none of that matters. I have a famous saying that I say, boxing doesn't care. It was your girlfriend's birthday. You skip practice. Boxing doesn't care. It's your birthday. You want to skip jogging. Boxing doesn't care. And I don't want to be insensitive, but I'm not a tennis coach. I'm not a soccer coach. I'm not going to coddle you. I'm going to give you tough love, and I'm going to be very honest with you. This is a sport that you can't lie in. There's no lying in that ring. It's the squared circle. It's its own universe, and none of the rules and laws that apply to us out here apply in there. You're a gladiator. You go back in time when you put that helmet on. It's just you and this other guy in an arena fighting each other in front of the king and queen. It's very old school. So you can't lie to these boys. So, I work with one thing I've learned is every kid's different. Every kid's going to have a different ceiling. Every kid's going to require a different tone. One boy, if he's losing a bout, you might want to get in the ring and jump all over him, jump right in his trunks and scream at him. And another boy, you might have to coddle. Hey, man, you're doing great. Relax. I've learned a lot about how to tailor each experience to each boy, and to see their ceiling early and not make a boy that shouldn't be trying to be the world champion, train to be a world champion,
Right. You can find every episode on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or YouTube, or any podcast app. Follow our social accounts for show updates, local events, inspirational content, or simply for fun. Follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, or Instagram. Please contact the Newsa-Cast to share your story, offer a suggestion of a particular athlete or sport, or even an idea, or just simply say hello. Newsa-Cast@gmail.com. You discovered, kind of what Lombardi did, right? You don't treat every player, every person the same because they're all different. They all respond to different things. It dawned on me as you were saying, I cannot imagine. They always say public speaking is like the scariest thing to do, but stepping into a ring where, like you said, it's just mano a mano, it's go time. There can't be anything more scary, but there also can't be any more adrenaline feeling moment than just stepping into the ring and going.
No, it's a high, man. I'll tell you, and you never lose it. I can remember my 150th fight. It was just as nerve-wracking as my first one. The moments before you get in the ring, a lot of things happen. I compare it to dying. Your life kind of flashes before your eyes. You think about, you go through a moment where you don't think, man, I haven't been training. My arm might hurt. Your mind plays tricks on you. And then you go through a moment of, I can do this, and you come right back. Well, and then you go back and forth a little bit, and what the idea is as you're walking to that ring, some kids cry, a lot of kids puke. I got a little 9-year-old. I call him Bam Bam. Little Bam Bam's one of my best fighters. He's been in the ring 24 times. Matter of fact, last weekend he was in the ring up at the Riverside Ballroom in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Outboxed a little boy out of St. Paul, Minnesota, that was about 8 pounds heavier than us. We probably should have took the match, but I have a hard time getting kids to want to box little Bam Bam. Little Bam Bam's got 19 bouts.
How old is he?
Or 19 victories. He's going to be 10 years old this summer.
Yeah.
So he's only 9, but we put him in the ring 24 times last year. He had 19 wins. A real good little fighter. I took him over to Detroit. He fought in a national tournament over in Detroit, and he was ranked 3rd in the country. But yeah, no, I got a lot of kids like that, though. The amount of talent I got is just wild. How early I found this talent is crazy.
And that's literally just kind of kids in this area, in this community, that just pretty much through word of mouth, Facebook, things like that. You do nice postings on social media, but it's just that kind of thing that leads these kids to you.
Yeah, I once asked my coach, I said, "Hey, Ken, why don't we got a sign outside that says boxing?"
Yeah.
And he says, "Nick, boxing's a real spiritual sport. And when a boxer wakes up in the morning, he finds you." And that's all these kids, they all found me,
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the fact that I found as many kids willing to work this hard to achieve a goal is crazy, and they're from all over. I got Oshkosh kids, I got Green Bay kids, and they find a way here. Some of them ride the public transit all the way here.
Yeah, it's incredible. Are there still old school? I mean, I feel like Rocky was a pretty good movie to kind of give you a general sense of kind of what that boxing world was like. Are there still, say, in Chicago, New York, some of those old cities like that, just the old school corner boxing gym?
Well, there's 49 gyms in the state of Wisconsin that do what I do. I'm the newest gym by far. Like my old coach has been training boxers to this day. He trains fighters in his 80s. He's among the rest of them. Milwaukee has had the United Community Center. They're nationally ranked. There was 2 or 3 boys out of that team that I fought as a kid that are current world champions. Forge Gym in Madison, Al Moreland and Racine, the Racine Boxing Club, the Kenosha Boxing Club, Auburndale, Vesper, Marshfield, Gus Gym, what is that? Black River Falls, Chippewa Falls, Eau Claire, Bloomer, Peshtigo. There's a lot of boxing clubs. The Indians are probably the oldest. Menominee, the Oneidas, they got big boxing programs.
Wow.
Lac de Flambeau is probably the largest boxing program. Ho Chunk, they all got big boxing clubs, and they're very well funded. Some boxing clubs are funded right through the YMCA, which is where I hope to end up someday. Madison has 2 or 3 boys and girls clubs. So does Janesville. There's a lot of boxing out there. It just doesn't make the news as much as it should. But I'm going to change that. I'm putting boxing back in the limelight.
Ooh, I have no doubt you're going to do that. This is just incredible. It's mind blowing what I'm learning. We've become friends on this podcast with Keegan Jenrich. It was for MMA.
Very good guy.
Oh my God, incredible! It's the same kind of relationship I have with you right now, where he's kind of teaching me MMA. I'm not, I grew up. It was funny. You said the Friday night fights. I remember the Sunday afternoon, I think it was, fights. You used to be able to see Muhammad Ali fight on a Sunday afternoon. Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, all those guys were actually on TV. So that's kind of, I've always had a love. My dad loved boxing, but I never really followed the sports. And then you start getting Tyson, you'd certainly watch those. But to discover Keegan and MMA, I guess what's your, I know boxing translates to MMA. Do some of these kids go into that?
It really doesn't. Boxing and MMA are very different worlds.
Okay.
Same with the UFC and all that. The one thing I will comment about that, I like watching it. Who doesn't like watching 2 guys go to war? But with boxing, you need to have so much rhythm. It's almost like dancing. I think that's why it's dominated by the Hispanic community, is they're so smooth on their toes. Boxing is really, you're the ballerinas of the ring. You only got two hands. They can only do so much. So you really need to use your hands and your feet together. And it's such an art. When you see a kid in the ring that can float on his toes and his timing, there's not much timing and rhythm in MMA. It's kind of like wrestling. And I only say that because when I get wrestlers in the gym, they're the hardest to train. They're flat footed. They really lack rhythm. They don't need it for their sport. They need to be strong and locked tight.
Right.
But you don't want to be tight. You want to be agile, mobile, and hostile. You got to be fluid. You got to move like water.
Yeah.
It just needs to be beautiful.
Like a butterfly, sting like a bee, right?
It's like coordinated dances. Once you learn how to move on your feet, and that's why jumping rope is huge. Once a kid can do a boxer's jump rope where he's skipping, and you can almost hear a beat.
Yeah.
It's like hearing a welder strike a weld and knowing it's a good weld.
Yeah.
Same with throwing punches. When you can hear a boxer, and that's another thing is in MMA and UFC, they don't put combinations together. They're kind of short, choppy punches. Their chin's exposed. I call it above water. In boxing, you got to tuck that chin. That's the reset button, and you want to throw punches like an AK. You want to throw 4 or 5, bop, 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 and it needs to be rhythmic. And you need to be moving while you're punching so that you can get your head off the line.
Yeah.
So it's very different. A lot of times they don't transition well. The one sport that does go good with boxing is karate. Karate kids come in, they're light on their feet. They know how to be on their balls of their feet. Their body moves so fluidly. They got really good timing. That I would say karate and taekwondo, those are more comparable, to a boxer's body than even MMA or jiu-jitsu. I feel like that's football to baseball.
Are you during training? Are you training to receive blows as well? Training your body how to accept those and
No, not really. I always tell a kid, sparring is where you learn how to fight.
Okay.
I can teach you how to box on the mitts and the bags and the drills with a broomstick, an old tire inner tube, with a piece of paper in your mouth. I can teach you how to move your head. But when you get in that ring, you have to develop instincts, and you have to have a good sense for when a punch is coming, and a great fighter can control you. He can use his twitches and his feet to make you do something. Like if I want this guy to throw a jab, I'm going to move my body like this. That's going to draw him into the open. And once he comes out into the open, I'm going to slip over here and I'm going to hit him with an uppercut and catch him right on the button.
Yeah.
There's a lot of anticipation that goes along with boxing. I compare it to being a quarterback in the pocket. You're making decisions without making decisions.
Sure. Are you guys watching film? Do you video tape all this? We do.
So when I first opened the gym, none of these kids even knew what boxing was.
Yeah.
They'd never even seen it. So on Sundays, I'll take the TV out of my waiting room in my auto shop and I'll put it in the ring and I'll get some pizzas. And we'll watch everything from amateur boxing to pro boxing to my old film to their old film. And I'll really break down what's going on.
Yeah.
The X's and O's of boxing, I call it.
No, that makes sense. I mean, a lot of kids, I learned this way. Sometimes you need to kind of see it to understand it.
And boxing is really a chess match. It really is, but instead of playing with chess pieces, you're playing with fists.
Sure.
Every time somebody makes a move, you react to it. And how you react to it and within the manner you react is going to determine who wins that bout. So a lot of boxers, some of the best fighters I ever fought, they play with Rubik's Cubes. They play chess in real life.
Interesting.
Because they're training their brain for that.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, so tell me, what is a path for a kid? 10-year-old Bam Bam walks into your gym and he wants to, be in the 2030 Olympics or whatever be the appropriate Olympics. He wants to be a champion. What's his path? What's his weeks, years kind of look like as he kind of builds up to that?
Well, see, the greatest thing about boxing is that's completely up to him. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Unlike football and baseball, if your mom and dad go buy you a weekend class at the head coach's baseball camp, that's not going to make you a starter or make you successful. What's going to make you successful is how you go about it and your attitude, and your discipline and your dedication to your sport. There's no second sports with boxing. I only got 2 kids out of 85 that do a second sport, and to be honest with you, they haven't fought yet, or they don't have a very good record.
Right.
Boxing is a very serious sport. It'll take up the majority of your time, as far as a little guy, because it's really an art and you really got to work at it. But little Bam Bam would come in the gym. I would start him on the new kid class. He would train 2 nights a week, and it would be really innocent. I won't be hollering at you. I'll be really just trying to keep it fun, but also develop you, and as you work, if every time I look at you, you're pouring sweat, and you just, coach, teach me this. What do you think about this? That boy's going to elevate quickly to the competitive class. Once you get to Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, well, now you're live sparring. You're coming in the gym, you're sparring 10 rounds a night, 20 rounds a week, maybe. You're getting in the ring, and I have so many fighters now. I have kids with 25 matches, so now as a new kid, you got to spar him. So my new kids are getting so good. Every group of kids that I baptize into the world of competitive boxing seems to be getting better and better and better. And I contribute that to the fact that, look at the work they're getting. They're getting in the ring with some of the best kids in the country, sparring them every night. So he would start sparring, and then what I do is I tell you, before you can spar, you got to show me 2 things: how to defend, that you can defend yourself, and that you can protect yourself. And those are 2 very different things.
Okay.
Once you give me confidence that you can protect yourself and you can defend yourself, I'll leave you spar. And once you start sparring, I'll let you spar until you start getting the better of somebody your size.
Sure.
If I put you in the ring with somebody your size that maybe has 2 or 3 matches and you're getting the better of them, now it's time to talk to your mom or dad or caseworker or foster parent, whoever, and say, hey, let's get this boy registered. To register a boy with USA Boxing, it's $80 a year. Doesn't go to me, it goes to USA Boxing. They need a copy of their birth certificate, and they need an up-to-date physical by a doctor, an MD or a DOC. Once they get those 2 things uploaded and someone in Colorado Springs has looked at them and accepted them, you get your license, your passbook, in the mail. With that passbook, you can go to any USA Boxing show in the country and compete. That's all you need, is that book. Now I'll go on the hunt, and I'll say, hey, okay, there's a show coming up in 4 weeks. I'm going to send in a list of kids. I'm going to put this kid on that list, 10 years old, 65 pounds, 0 matches. Then that guy throwing that show is going to call me. He's going to say, hey, Nick, I can match this kid, this kid, this kid, this kid with these boys from these gyms. This is their record. This is their age. This is their weight. In USA Boxing, you can box anybody within 5 pounds of you, and within 18 months of your birthday, up or down.
Okay.
Okay, so like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. At 17 and a half, you're considered an adult. You fight anybody up to 38 years old.
Oh, wow.
That's within 5 pounds of you.
Okay.
When it comes to matches, boxing is broken up into a novice and into an open class. Novice boxing is 10 bouts and less. That means a novice boxer can never fight a kid in the open class.
Okay.
Once you hit 11 bouts, you're kind of fed to the sharks. You could box a boy with 70 matches. You really got to have a good coach that works hard to make you matches until you get there.
Do they wear headgear at this age, or what? How does that?
They do. You wear headgear throughout the entirety of it, and they have to be USA Boxing approved.
Sure.
And they're really strict on what type of headgear you can use. Lately, we've been using what's called open face, so it leaves the nose, the cheek, and the lips and the chin exposed.
Okay.
Really only protects the temples, the forehead, and the back of the head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then obviously you're wearing 10-ounce gloves.
Okay.
You'll have your hands wrapped. Your hand wraps will be inspected before the bout. You'll wear a groin protector and a USA Boxing Approved mouth guard.
How big? So when they go, when you go on the road, are these like large event spaces? Is it just another gym?
It all depends. Every gym in the State's got to throw one show a year. So we got about 49 shows a year. It all depends. I mean, they could be at a sports bar with 1,000 people. They could be at a basketball gym. I had a show at Trinity Lutheran in Kaukauna. We had about 650 spectators.
Wow.
We had 26 matches. I had 23 of my own kids fight on that card. I had shows at Paperfest in Kimberly.
Yeah.
We had about 1,000 people right outside in the open.
Are you going to be there this year?
Yep. This year they came to me and they want me to do a 2-day tournament under a tent at night.
Oh, how great.
So I'm going to do grown men 18 and over on Friday night. And then I'm going to do all the kids 18 and under on Saturday afternoon.
So that adult of the grown men, how many minutes are the rounds?
Those are 3-3-minute rounds.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's for anybody over 15. Once you turn 15 in the open class above 10 bouts, you're expected to be able to compete 3-3-minute rounds.
How is it finding officials?
That's not up to me. The state of Wisconsin, we got a great LBC, a local boxing commissioner. The LBC is called Wisconsin Boxing. We got a president, a treasurer, a vice president, chief of official, chief of refereeing. We got about 5 referees. We got about 20 judges. We got great doctors. We got 3 doctors in our state that do this. They run the weigh-ins, and then they sit ringside for the entire show.
Excellent. So they're doing the circuit, and that's what I wanted to ask you. I saw on Facebook you have a van and a trailer. You have a portable ring. So is that separate from these where you're bringing that?
Right. So there's only 2 people in the state that have registered rings. They charge about $1,500 a day to rent them. Sure. I got sick of paying that because it takes all the profit away from the gym throwing the show. Not only that, but I pay for this out of my pocket. So, I mean, I'm feeding these kids. Sometimes I'm traveling with up to 30 kids. They don't bring lunch money. They don't bring change of clothes. So I'm bankrolling this. And we go as far as Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
With 30 kids. So what I wanted, and I was looking for sponsors and shout out to Tom's Drive-In, Valley Machining, or Manufacturing, and the House of Flooring and Custom Curb Appeal. Nice. They stepped forward and donated $2,500 each.
Wow.
And purchased us a brand new ringside competition ring. And now we'll be able to rent that out. And for one, I'm going to rent it a lot cheaper than the other guy because that's just too much money.
Yeah.
So I really just want to cover the cost for my weekend so that I don't got to spend, I spend $200 at Subway almost every Saturday. If you go through my bank statement, we spend $150 at Subway easily every Saturday.
Northeast Wisconsin Sports Advancement, or Newsa, is a nonprofit org where our mission is to raise money, provide support, and bring greater awareness to youth sports organizations in Northeast Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through the Every Kid Plays grant. If you are considering donating or providing support through Newsa, please visit redsmith.org for details. Well, that's what I don't know if people understand. Like you're talking to me right now in your shop. I mean, you're a mechanic. That's your trade. That's what you do. I don't know if people get the sense of that's not. This is a complete side project for you that you're funding yourself.
Well, it took over. Honestly, I changed the name of my business after 3 years to Shooters. Yeah. Because if you go on Google, we have 85,000 people a quarter look up Google Shooters Boxing. The following is massive compared to what I had going for my little mechanic shop. Right. So it's kind of funny that this little boxing gym I started with the money out of the till, uh, took over. It really took over. Even my oil change stickers. If you read my oil change stickers, the bottom of my sticker says "Go Shooters Boxing."
Oh, nice. I love it.
We do 30 oil changes a day, so there's 30 cars a day leaving here with that slogan on their windshield.
Yeah.
And they all know. If you walk into my shop here, I have. We won the team state title. We had 14 state champions. That was the most out of any gym in the state. So we got the team state title right here.
Oh, yes.
And that's proudly on display along with, pictures of the kids in our newspaper article that the Post Crescent did. Not only that, but then after the state tournament, I hauled all 14 state champions up to Minneapolis. They fought the state champions from Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Iowa. I had 11 regional champions, and we took home the regional team trophy.
Yeah, I
We
love
had
it.
the most regional champions out of all 5 states.
Oh, that's incredible.
So
those things are huge.
Right. And we were going up against gyms that have been doing this for 50 years. Their coaches are in their 80s, and here I am. I've only been doing this 22 months. I'm only 30 years old.
Yeah.
I'm the coach, and it's out of my back garage, when people hear other coaches come up to me after the match and they talk to me, they normally think I'm the assistant coach
Sure.
traveling with the kids. And I say, no, this is my gym, and I show them, and they're just astonished, and so am I. I've been around boxing my whole life. If somebody would have told me my story when I was back in Wisconsin Rapids, I would have said, well, that's fiction. That's a Disney Channel movie. That's not real life, and here I am living a freaking Disney movie,
Unreal. I mean, it literally is. It's incredible. It's an incredible story. Someday you're going to be Ken, though. Somebody's going to tap you in a Quick Trip someday and say, where did you get that sweatshirt?
And that's all I want to be, I really, even if I was to train a world champion, and, there's a lot of money in boxing, kids that I fought are millionaires off of boxing. Tank Davis fought last weekend. Now here's a 25-year-old kid. He fought one fight and he made $15 million.
Man.
There's a lot of money. Last week we went up to Green Bay. There was a pro boxing show, professional. At the local level, those boys are making $2,500 each to go 4 rounds. There's a lot of money in boxing.
Yeah.
So even if I did get a kid to go to the pro level and win millions of dollars, I would never change. I would never say, okay, I'm a pro coach now, I'm only going to train professionals. No, my heart will always be with these amateurs, and I will always train amateur boxers.
That's
even if I was a millionaire.
You should be commended for that, for sure. What is so that if you find a couple of kids that maybe want to go the professional route, what would that look like for them? What would their life look like? And I guess also, would that be different than what the Olympic path would be? Are those two separate things? Yeah. Okay.
So you make 2 decisions, and it was a decision my brother made, and I even eventually made. Amateur boxing after 18 years old, if you're not primed and almost on the way to an Olympic dream, you're better off turning professional. Now that means you're not going to be worth as much. You win an Olympic gold medal, well, you're going to get a contract. You're going to get a $400,000 contract the second you land back in the U.S., or $1 million contract.
Right.
And you're going to be living in Las Vegas or L.A. or Florida or Philadelphia or Chicago. You're going to be boxing for a big promotion company like Mayweather or Pretty Boy or someone that's bankrolling your life. Now, if you choose not to do that, you can either go out east or go out west and hope to not get scammed and ripped off. A lot of promoters will use and abuse you. They'll sign you for $80,000, $100,000, and you'll be a punching bag. You'll be brain dead by the time you're 20. You'll be a sparring partner for all these world champions. The right way to do it, and it's the way that my coach wanted us to do it, and ultimately we didn't do it this way, but the right way to do it is to stay local. Turn 18. If you're not going to go to the Olympics, nothing changes other than your routine. Now go to community college, work at a gas station, live with mom and dad, get to the gym, train 3-4 hours a night, and use your amateur coach if he's willing. And I'm willing. I'm about to do it this summer for 2 boys to go out and find you some tomato cans. You know what I mean? Find you some guys to knock over that want to just make $2,500.
Yeah.
And I'll build you, a good record. We'll get you to 10-0 locally, fighting right here in Green Bay against sauce cans, MMA guys with no boxing background.
Sure.
We call them opponents. I would find you some good opponents, and I wouldn't let you get your head beaten. Now, once you're 10-0, now we go out west together. Me and you take a trip, and we go out west. And we're going to go walk into these boxing camps, and we're going to get one of them to let us spar their idea of a future world champion. And you hope that goes good. That's almost like an interview, Josh Johnson, who's on the poster for my next show here, he's 18 years old. He's a national champion. He's a state champion. He's 22-3 record.
Yeah.
He's got ambitions of being a pro fighter. So this summer, I'm going to turn him pro, I think. And that's as easy as a signature. But there's no going back. The second you turn pro, you never compete with headgear or in the amateur ranks ever again.
Right.
Some people say you sell your soul to the devil. But, when you go pro, you're dealing with sleazy people. Boxing has a reputation since the mafia days that,
Yeah.
It's been extorted. Promoters, Don King, everybody knows. Obviously, we're trying to change that. We're trying to be more like the UFC where we can,
like, are you able to put on like an event, a show or something like that? I know like Barstool Sports, I love following their stuff. They have like a Rough and Rowdy, but it has to be held in West Virginia because of licensing or something like that. Is that, are those kind of things where it's more trustworthy people running
right.
it?
So when it goes to pro boxing, you got to deal with the pro boxing commissioner. Every state has one. It's a full-time job.
Okay.
Wisconsin has one. Ours is a lady out of Madison. She decides who's going to be the refs, the judges. All of the refs and judges almost are all from Nevada. They do all the pro shows. They travel quite a bit. The referee that was just in Green Bay refereed a Tyson Fury fight in Australia a month or 2 ago. So these are the same people you see on TV pretty much. But that's all done by the commissioner. Each state has their own rules. And they can sanction whatever they want. A lot of times Jake Paul doing those celebrity boxing stuff, they have to go to a state that's willing to sanction it. Not a lot of states, even on Rocky, they show him as an old guy going to the commissioner begging to get his license back. That's how it is. There's a board of people and there's a commissioner, and they decide ultimately if Nick Maher can hold this show in Appleton.
Yeah.
And I have to have a whole business plan. I have to have who's going to be security, who's going to be on the card, and they won't let you put a kid or a guy with no fights with a guy that's 0-28.
Yeah. Interesting. Boy, it's fascinating.
It's a business, man. Boxing is a big, big business. And a lot of the money comes from overseas, the UK, Mexico, Canada is huge in boxing. We have a foreign exchange student from Italy. He tells me there's so many boxers in Italy, they have to draw names at random to pick who's going to get to compete this weekend.
Wow.
Because there's so many boxers.
You mentioned, I think, right at the very beginning, you said boxing is the oldest competitive sport, the oldest sport in the world?
It's the oldest sport in the world, and it was the first $1 million gate. In 1904, Jack Dempsey, had the first $1 million gate at Yankee Stadium for over 160,000 fans.
I remember my dad and uncle talking about that. They were older. Yeah, incredible.
That was $1 million. So that was the first boxing, until the 70s, until Muhammad Ali kind of got old. Everybody knew who the world champion was. Everybody wanted to be the heavyweight world champion, but other sports took over, and boxing used to be more vicious than it is today. We don't got a lot of brain dead boxers anymore. It's a very safe sport. We're 24th overall. You know, I always make the comparison. I had 6 sisters in competitive cheerleading growing up. They were in a cast every summer. I never had a bloody nose.
Yeah.
You know, I never once had an injury ever, and I was in there 175 times.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
nuts. Is that world still there? Like that, you know, Tyson was probably maybe for at least me that I can remember just that great just capture you got to see TV watching a Tyson fight, Muhammad Ali, some of those guys. Are there people like that now? I don't follow the sport as close anymore.
right. There is. You know, we got right now, I would say Javante Davis, Terrence Crawford, a lot of the lightweight guys are, you know, they're superstars. They're making 25-50 million dollars a fight. You know, in the heavyweight world, you got Anthony Joshua, you know, the European heavyweight champion. You got Deontay Wilder, who was an Olympic medalist for the U.S. You got Tyson Fury, always kind of the Gypsy King. You know, he's pretty charismatic. He got a lot of fans.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to have to check those guys out for sure. The other thing I wanted to ask you, especially the amateur fighters or the professional fighters, I should say, how much time do they need between matches, between fights, for recovery?
So the amateurs, I like to keep it, you know, I like to keep you really active. Some of my kids will fight every weekend, you know, like little Bam Bam this weekend. He woke up on Saturday morning. He didn't even know he was going to fight. He was laying at home with his 6-week-old baby brother watching cartoons. And I got a call from the guy throwing the show. He said, Nick, I need a favor. I got a guy that drove all the way here from St. Paul. He brought his son. Their match didn't show up. Do you got anybody 75 pounds? I says, well, I got a kid 67 pounds. He says, who? I says, well, Bam Bam. And he said, man, I don't know if they'll take it. I says, well, let me know. He called me back. He said, hey, they didn't come all this way not to fight. They'll fight anybody.
Yeah.
I called little Bam Bam. And he jumped up off the couch, made his mom drive him to weigh-ins. We put him on the scale at noon. He was in the ring boxing at 1:30.
Oh, incredible.
You know, it really goes on how good of a match we can find for you. And if you're looking all right in the gym, you know, I mean, if I see you in sparring and you're lethargic and you're missing your spark, and you're matched on Saturday, I'll pull the bout. I won't let you go compete, you know?
Yeah. Boy, it's so fascinating. And it's unlike almost any other sport, your connection with the athlete, with the boxer. What gets you through a run? You mentioned a number of times you're on the road pounding the pavement. Well, how do you get through that? What do you think about
Every time those kids' hand get raised, man, it's a drop of gas in the tank. You know what I mean? You know, like, okay, how about this? We went on the road for like a 14-week stretch at the end of summer into fall, and it was probably our 8th or 9th week, and I'm pretty burned out. And I take the kids over to Neilsville. There was only 13 matches that night. 12 of them featured a shooter's boxer.
Yeah.
We won 11 of them.
Oh, nice.
Now that right there, baby, you're back in the gym the next morning because the kids want you to open the door. You know, even though you got home at 2 a.m, you're still getting up and going to open the gym because these kids want to come use the gym. You know, and then the very next weekend, we went up to Eau Claire, and there was only 12 bouts. We were 8 of them, all 8 won.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, now that's what I'm talking about, you know, that really, you know, but you have your bad stretches. The last 3 weekends, I'm not shy about it, man. We had a rough go of it. We had one show, we had 18 kids box, only 10 of them won. That's not good odds. We did extra burpees for a week because of that. We ran suicides for 30 minutes the Monday after that. I don't like losing. Then the weekend after that, I had only 3 kids fight, only one won up in Wausau. Then the week after that was last weekend. We went down to Racine or up to Green Bay. We had 3 kids fight, only one of them won.
Yeah.
You know, and now it's time to get back on them, you know.
And in between, like you said, these kids are all on their own. They're doing push-ups, sit-ups, running, hitting, putting in miles. Just they're doing it all on their own, in addition to coming to the gym to putting in that work too.
Right. And, and there's no lying. I'll know if you're doing your road work.
Yeah.
I'll know, because you'll be getting sauced up in the second and third round down in Milwaukee. You'll be coming to the corner panting, and I'm rough around the edges, man. I'll look that boy right in the eye and tell him,
Yeah.
this is somebody that wanted it more than you.
Do you still run the road?
No, I take the boys jogging through town, and I ride a bicycle, one of the kids' bikes.
Okay.
And we'll jog 3 to 5 miles, time jogging, sprinting, and long distance. I did fight over the summer. The kids made me. I threw a show at Paper Fest, and I'll never do it again. I boxed another coach from Madison that I fought as an 11-year-old kid. And me and him were arguing over making matches for our kids. And I said, you know what? Why don't we fight? And he says, well, I'll do that. And I said, well, I'll do that. So at the Paper Fest, I set the ring up in 90-degree heat.
Yeah.
I was the opening match.
Yeah.
And then I got out of the ring and I did the corner for 16 straight fights.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I took the ring down and cleaned the mess up. And I'll never do that again. That was a rough day.
That is incredible. How gassed were you on that fight?
Very gassed. I never let my hands go. I never got hit. I pride myself in that. I don't like kids that get hit. I got a lot of tough kids, Pablo, kids that like to just show me how tough they are by taking a punch. That's not tough. That's stupid. The idea behind boxing is to strike your opponent from a position that they're unable to strike you back. Hit without getting hit.
No, makes sense. Well, Nick, I feel like I could talk to you all night. I'm not sure when you ever sleep in this whole conversation. I can't imagine you get much of that, so I don't want to keep it too long. But I definitely want to come to the gym, and I definitely want to have you on again. And I feel like there's a lot more to cover and kind of get an update on how all the kids are doing as well.
Absolutely. I think you'll get updates. I really do think, we had Spectrum News come out last week. We've had NBC. We just had Fox News 11 call us today.
Nice.
My goal with the gym is to get a platform of some kind. I would like to find somebody out there that's into editing and media. I would really like to have at least a YouTube series called The Journey. And I would like to document these kids' lives, from the little scuffle at school and punishing that kid to this other kid training for a rematch. I would like to show the trials and tribulations of an amateur boxer. And I think it would make a great Netflix series someday. And I hope that I'm able to put boxing back on the front line of things. I want us to take this new ring we got and do boxing in the park every Sunday in Appleton at a different park. And kind of try to expose as many kids to the sport as we can,
Just absolutely incredible. I don't even know what to say. That's just, you're going to succeed. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, man. I tell you, it's nothing I'm doing. It's the fact that all these great kids found me,
Yeah, it's cool when you find those kids. And for anybody that wants to sponsor, you're on social media, your website, just stop at the gym. But there's got to be, there's no better cause than what you're doing.
Absolutely. And we're a federal non-for-profit.
Yeah.
We have a board. We're always looking for board members. Right now, our board is made up of people that have never been on a board. So, anybody out there that has experience with grant writing and boards, I can see this being my full-time job someday, and I could see myself working with 150, 200 kids a day from all the different charter schools and subsidiary schools, and even detention centers, even homeschooled kids. I would like to be able to get up in the morning and for 10 hours a day work with today's youth, regardless of what their situation is, even if it is special needs or anger management or rehabilitation of any kind. I would really like to develop this non-for-profit into a community center of some kind.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, yeah, man, we'll definitely stay in touch and certainly see if our two groups can maybe even work together. And I know, I mean, once people start hearing the story and seeing, I mean, you can't help but be attracted to it. It's exactly what, I mean, it's what makes communities is things like this. It gives, we got to just help each other, right? We got to be there for each other. And this is
right. You know,
exactly.
Hey, my famous saying is boxing is family, man. And,
yeah.
You know, these kids are a family. This is a brotherhood, you know, and a sisterhood. We got a lot of girls in the gym. Girls can box too. Some of my best boxers are females. You know, if you're looking for somewhere to belong, you're looking for somewhere to fit in, you're looking for somewhere to be successful.
Yeah.
You know, find a boxing gym and get into it, you know. And if you're someone that wants to offer support, man, support your local youth boxing gym. Those are warriors in there no matter where you are. If you meet a youth boxer, give them a high five. You know, they don't get the clout that a wrestler does or a football team does, you know.
Yeah.
They don't get parades when they win the state title like they should.
Absolutely. Well, I know where one of those gyms are. It's right in Little Chute, called Chuter.
Oh.
So gonna head over there.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, this is time for the clip of our throwback to the Red Smith Sports Banquet. And this week we are looking at, you know, I really think that he's credited for bringing the Brewers back to the winning ways. It took a little bit, but we have Doug Melvin.
Yeah, 2009 Brewers GM Doug Melvin. You're absolutely right, Tosh. Brewers haven't won a World Series, but they've been pretty competitive for 10, 15 years now, you know, almost every single year. And Doug Melvin was the start of that.
Yeah. So it's a very good interview. He came to several Red Smiths. I mean, not just to speak, but came as a representative for the Brewers as well.
Took many P's next to him, Tosh, at the Paper Valley Hotel. Absolutely.
Well, that's a whole different interview, but this is a great clip. And remember, you get that full interview on our YouTube channel. So you should go check out that YouTube channel, hit subscribe, like, and whatever else you have to do to make sure that you continue to get those amazing throwbacks that are part of the Red Smith Sports Banquet history.
The Red Smith Sports Award Banquet.
The main reason that this banquet was established was to honor at least 10 local area people who might not have been honored for the job they do to help in sports.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport.
Who has made a significant contribution to sports in the state of Wisconsin.
And also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
I'll have to go to weight training to handle this. This is beautiful and heavy.
Thanks, Roland. Hey, Mark, it's a little tough standing up here when people talking about you, and we both recognize that there's so many other people that help us with our careers. And that I was thinking back when the young students here were receiving their scholarship awards, and the one boy, David, baseball player, and he steals a lot of bases, and I put my arm up on him and I said, "Who's your favorite Brewer?" And he said, "I'm a Red Sox fan." But congratulations, David. Anyways, but I do recognize young athletes, and it's interesting when Chuck was reading, and every athlete played played 3 or 4 sports and still had the ability to be successful in academics and that. And I grew up in a small town in Canada, somewhat similar. I grew up playing hockey, played basketball and football. Hockey practice was always at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30. And my grades were starting to suffer because I was playing 2 and 3 sports. So my parents told me that I had to drop something because it was just too tough. Education was very important. I told them I needed a couple days. When I came back, I said, I'm going to drop school. And that wasn't the answer they wanted to hear. But for some reason, I quit playing hockey and I focused on baseball. Ferguson Jenkins, Hall of Famers from our small town, and that. Now, winning a Good Guy award, I've always heard good guys finish last. I've been there before, Roland. That's not a lot of fun. So I hope good guys don't finish last in that regard. But Roland was a great mentor for me, and I think every young athlete here will have someone that's helped them be successful. And the one thing that doesn't get noticed a lot of times with successful athletes or successful organizations is the number of people that help. You know, just from the ticket office to the grounds crew to the people parking cars, getting people in to watch the game. There's so many people involved beyond the athlete. It is a shame today sometimes that the athletes are held in such high esteem and that. And I always try to teach through our player development system for our athletes to remember who touched them and who had an impact on them to get them to where they are today to have success in that. Roland, I know that I learned so many things from Roland. We had a blast, like he said, when we were 0-21. That was pretty tough. Imagine going to work every day, losing a ball. When we have a 3 or 4 game winning streak, we get ripped all over the talk shows and that. But 0-21, I don't know where you'd hide. We didn't really hide though, did we? We stood out front and tried to turn it around. We did through the development of young players, again, scouts and development staff. But I remember Roland, one of the things, I learned so many things from Roland, I could stay up here all night, but one of the things I learned from him, and it really helped me with my career, when he was working with the White Sox, he told me this story about Bill Veeck, who everyone knows that they operated on a very small budget. And Roland went to Bill Veeck before the winter meetings one year and said, Bill, we need some players. We're going to have to get some players. I'm going to the winter meetings. He said, what's our budget? And Bill looked at Roland and he said, budget. He said, what's our budget? I want to know what I can spend and whatever. He said, Roland, you have to have money to have a budget. We have no money. Just go find some players. And I never thought of it, but you really have to have money to have budget, right? And so I've always kept that in mind. I think the most important thing is find the players first. And it's very difficult in our game today. I know that you had a great silent auction out here and raising a lot of money. I was involved in a silent auction this off season too. Yeah, those, what were they? What'd you call them? Those Yankees? Yankees that gave CC $160 million. Again, I just want to thank the Red Smith Club here for giving me the opportunity to receive this award. Again, all the athletes, all the people that are involved in helping to raise money for a great cause, and again to the award winners up here. Again, coming to Appleton, I know everybody has talked about it. What a treat, what a pleasure. I know that what we look for in minor league teams are minor league teams that are well run and well managed, and Rob does a great job, and we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be tough to beat the history of what Roland did with those White Sox players. And Rob, I hope we can provide you a picture that's 18-2. I know, look at Jeff smiling there too, but come on out and support the Timber Rattlers. I'll be here a lot. That's one of the things that I do enjoy about us coming to Appleton is I'll get a chance to spend time in Appleton because you people have been so great to the Brewers. Again, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Tosh, it was another great throwback. Remember, folks, you can get those the Newsa-Cast YouTube page. Well over 80 of those babies out there for you to listen to from every sport. Well, Tosh, as we close out a fantastic show, we always like to end with a little "It's Forgotten and I'm Never Forgetting." So what's forgotten in your world this week?
Well, this is just a personal one for me. I mean, our listeners probably have no care in the world about this whatsoever, but I am winding down and rapidly forgetting ACT testing because that has been my world for the last couple months, getting that set, getting kids who weren't at our ACT testing because it's all part of our school report card and they needed to go to college and different things like that. So it's a pain. And ACT is a big organization. It's not super helpful. And so when you call them, you might sit on the phone for an hour waiting for one question to be answered. So I am looking forward to forgetting it and getting back to reality of just an assistant principal again. So
I can only imagine, Tosh. I know your schedule is absolutely insane. That's really the reason why a lot of these interviews you haven't been able to make it, because you just literally Sunday nights have always been a recording night. Tosh is busy with that. Who knew? I mean, who knew?
No,
and
it's
who's
all
calling the ACT so many times that they can't answer the phone.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems that happen. I'm not going to go into specifics and stuff, but getting kids registered, there's different windows and you have to get one kid out of one window, put them in the second window. And I politely asked, I said, why do we even have windows? Just make it one huge session. They didn't like that and they just moved me on. So I probably have a red flag at the ACT, but hey, that's okay. So that is my forgotten or want to forget. Joe, how about yourself?
Well, Tosh, what's forgotten for me is I recently picked up a new used bike, and it came with this phone holder, and I thought, God, yeah, I'm going to put my phone on it. It's going to be fantastic. I talked to Taylor, our editor. It's like, you know what? I'm going to put my phone, I'm going to get video, and we're going to post that on my bike rides. It's going to be awesome. Put it on there, get it all locked in. I'm biking along, getting to crunch. It's 4:30 in the morning. I must have hit something. Pull up to the bike rack. My phone's not on the thing. Like, what the heck? It was back on the sidewalk. It had fallen off as I kind of went up the curb ramp and thought, all right, I'm going to chalk that up to just, I didn't have it clipped in right, or something happened, or I had it at a bad angle. Right in again today, in fact. Had it tilted, I thought, at the perfect angle, have it locked in, conscious of where I might hit a bump. I'm flying along. I go through an intersection. Right in the middle of the intersection, the phone goes flying off right in the middle of the crosswalk, and there's a car standing right there. They literally saw the whole thing. So thank goodness they stopped and didn't run over my phone. But I have to slow down, drop my bike on the sidewalk, run out into the street, little courtesy wave to the folks, pick up my phone that was laying in the middle of the street, and vouch to never use that phone holder again.
Yeah, I think I would take that off.
Yeah, it's off. It's off. So that is definitely forgotten, Tosh. Thank goodness for that. My phone survived, so I'm thankful for that. So something good, Tosh. What's something you're never going to forget?
Well, we record this on Sunday, April. What is today? The 13th? Yeah.
Yeah.
And today was the finish to an incredible Masters. Yeah. And I love Masters Week. Part of it is Will was born during Masters Week.
Oh, so, yeah. Happy birthday, Will.
Yeah. So we always, I always associate that with him. And I just love watching Masters, it's just the pomp and circumstance of it, the beauty of the course. It's just, there's something special about it. And obviously Rory McIlroy winning, 14 years. And it was 2014. He won his last Masters, and he finally got that, or won his last major, and finally got that Masters to get the career Grand Slam. So
I'm big enough to admit I had tears coming down the side of my eyes after he won and walked off. I have the similar one too, Tosh, for never forgetting. It's Masters related as well. Yeah. And it just speaks to the whole weekend. There is literally no better tournament than the Masters. It's the best high definition TV.
Yep.
It's, their app, the Master app is insanely incredible. Their website is good. I was off Thursday and I sat at my desk and on my screen, I was at masters.com and I watched every hole of the Masters basically on Thursday. It's unbelievable, but you're right. The Sunday afternoon what we saw today was all time. I've never seen, that might be the most bizarre Sunday ever. I mean, we saw Nicholas win in 86. We've seen Norman melt down. We've, seen people throw it in Rays Creek, but to have the drastic lead changes and the storylines, it was nuts, nuts.
It is. It is it's a tournament like no other. That's for sure. It's pretty incredible.
It really is. It really is. It is. And that's the very definition of we're never forgetting.
Absolutely. So, it's like I said, I look forward to it every single year, and I will always look forward to it. And it's just something I'll never forget.
Cheers to the Masters. Cheers to Rory, and cheers to us, I guess, for getting through another episode.
There you go. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it and hope you come back and listen. We have lots more interviews coming up that will knock your socks off.
Thanks for listening to the Newsa-Cast. We appreciate your support in our journey to highlight and support youth sports in Northeast Wisconsin. Help us grow by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts or sharing the Newsa-Cast on social media. A huge thank you to Diggstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig, find them on Spotify, or check them out at diggstownrocks.com. One of the best ways to help us grow the show is to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and Spotify. It really helps our visibility. This Newsa-Cast was produced by Polywave Studios.